All right, let's dive into something we've all felt. We're going to talk about the architecture of uncertainty, which is really just a fancy way of asking, why does your brain completely freak out and absolutely despise surprises?
You know the feeling, right? You're waiting for that call about a job, or maybe you're waiting on some test results, and you find yourself not just thinking about what might happen, you're planning for it. You've got a whole strategy for the good news, the bad news, the confusing news, even the hey, we need another week news.
If that sounds like you probably just tell yourself you're an overthinker. But here's the thing, that's not just some weird quirk you have. It goes way deeper than that. This is actually a survival instinct, hardwired into your brain from thousands of years ago.
So, what is actually happening in our heads when we do this? Well, let's start by giving this habit a name. Some people call it the 17 scenario brain.
Now, why the number 17? It's not a magic number or anything like that. It's really just a stand-in, a metaphor for that seemingly endless list of possibilities your brain just loves to cook up. It's when you realize you've not only planned for outcome A and outcome B, but for 17 other wild possibilities, just in case.
What we're really doing here is acting like architects of the mind. We're building these incredibly detailed mental blueprints, mapping out all these different structures for a future that, let's be honest, we can't possibly predict. We're trying to build a solid shelter on ground that's constantly shifting beneath our feet.
And this whole process, it gets locked into a cycle. It always starts with an unknown. Then our brain, which is an amazing threat detector, immediately jumps to a worst-case scenario. To fight that feeling of dread, we create a super detailed plan. But here's the catch. Once we solve that problem, our brain goes, okay, cool. Now, what if this happens? And boom, the cycle starts all over again. But why? Why do our brains work this way? To really get it, we have to look at the evolutionary why. We have to understand that to our ancient brain, uncertainty isn't just an inconvenience, it's a primal danger.
So this is where we have to totally reframe what unpredictability means. To us, now, it's just a lack of information, right? But to that ancient reptilian part of our brain, it's not neutral at all. Unpredictability is an active threat signal. It's the sound of rustling in the tall grass. It could be nothing, but it could also be a predator. And your brain would rather be safe than sorry.
And this basically splits your brain's world into two very different camps. In one corner, you've got certainty. That means safety, control, patterns, everything good. And in the other corner, you have uncertainty. And your brain just labels that threat, chaos, vulnerability, danger. For a brain that has one job, survival, it's a pretty easy choice which one it prefers.
See, here's the thing we have to remember. Your brain's number one job is not to make you happy. It's to keep you alive. And the best way it knows how to do that is to be a master pattern spotter. It's constantly trying to create order, to draw a predictable map out of all the chaos in the world.
Okay, so we have this ancient wiring. How does that actually show up in our modern day-to-day lives? Well, it leads to what you could almost call a planning addiction.
This quote really just hits the nail on the head. All that planning, especially the over-planning, it isn't just about being practical. It's a psychological weapon. It's our brain's way of fighting back against that primal feeling of danger. It's trying to force a sense of order onto a world that is, by its very nature, unpredictable. And get this, here's the craziest part. The feeling of relief doesn't actually come from having a good plan. The relief comes from the act of planning itself. It doesn't even matter if you ever use one of those 17 scenarios you dreamed up. Just the process of creating them gives your brain this temporary but really powerful illusion of being in control. So why does it feel so good, almost compulsive? Well, first, it gives us something to do, instead of just sitting there and waiting, which reduces that awful feeling of helplessness. It also carves out a predictable little path in our minds. And maybe most importantly, for just a little while, it hits the snooze button on that blaring threat alarm inside our head.
All right, so we've covered the what and the why. So what's the big takeaway here? What does this all add up to? Well, this is what we can call the architecture of anxiety. And we're right back where we started, with that central idea of architecture. All those mental blueprints, every single one of those 17 scenarios, they are the structures we desperately build in our minds. We build them because we're trying to feel safe, to feel stable, on the fundamentally shaky and uncertain ground of what's to come.
So, what should you walk away with? 3 things. 1. Your brain is hardwired to see uncertainty as danger. That's not a personal flaw. 2. All that obsessive planning? It's a natural, even if it's stressful, coping mechanism. And 3, and this is the most important one,
This is a feature, not a bug. It's the very same hardware that has kept humans alive for millennia.
Which really leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If you know you can never truly predict the future, is it possible to change your relationship with it? Instead of constantly building walls against uncertainty, can you maybe learn to befriend it? Just something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.